Hey there, it's BoardGameDave, and welcome to, at long last, my top 50 games of all time. Now, I've been doing this channel for almost 2 years, and I've never done a list of my, favorite all-time games until right now. I figure it's summer vacation, I've got a little more time on my hands, so why not go ahead and do this now? Although I will say, of course, you may know that my last few weeks, things have gotten pretty busy. Speaking of which, by the way, if you're watching this on Sunday morning when it's uploaded, I am currently on a plane to Japan. So as you're watching this, I might be flying over Greenland or Iceland or flying into Hong Kong actually. So just so you know, that's where I'm at right now. And by the time you're watching this, I'll have been, is that the right way to say that? I will have had been at Origins Game Fair in Columbus, which I'm really looking forward to. I'm actually flying out tomorrow, or driving out tomorrow to Columbus. So there's a lot going on. All this to say, today's gonna be part one of my top 50 games of all time. We'll talk about numbers 50 to 41, and then next week, we'll just keep trekking with my top 50. So with all that out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and start with my number 50 favorite game of all time. Oh, before we get to the list, really quick, I did want to talk about my process for how I ranked all of these games. So the first thing I did was I went over to Board Game Geek, where I've got pretty much every game I've ever played logged on there. So I took over 400 games, brought them into PubMeeple, imported it into that website, which I'll leave a link to in the description, by the way. It's a really great website for comparing or ranking games or whatever. Put them into the website, and then from that 400 plus list, I culled it down to my 150 favorite top core games. So a lot of filler games, party games didn't make the cut. I just kind of went for my strategy, Euro, favorite games. So once I had those 150 games, I went into the ranking phase, which took over 2 hours, by the way, and 600-ish comparisons of game A or game B, and you just go through and choose one or the other all the way through your collection. And then along the way, there was 8 games that I took off the list, just games I wasn't sure if I was a huge fan of. So, and then I ended up with 142 games ranked from favorite to least favorite. So that's what I'm working with today. Again, we're going through my 50 to number 41, but using PubMeeple, and there was a lot of surprises. I mean, it was not the list I would have made for myself, but I'm gonna go ahead and trust their ranking engine.
It's called the algorithm.
And we'll see what shows up. So let's go ahead and start with number 50. All right, now I should say, by the way, that I don't own a lot of these games, so I'll be using BGG for some of these games on my list, starting right here with number 50, 11, Football Manager board game. Not rank 11, but the game is called 11-11. Of course, players on a pitch in soccer or football. So this is a very interesting game in that it's my only sports game anywhere in my top 150 games. It seems like they don't make a lot of good strategy Euro games about sports, but this is a rare exception. So my friend Connor backed the Kickstarter, and I was very, very excited to play it. I have been recently getting back into soccer a lot ever since the World Cup, so this was a theme I was really interested in, and the game looked so interesting. So in this game, not only are you preparing for the matches and kind of deciding which player plays and which players sit out and what positions they play, there's also all the other side of it, like advertising and sponsorships and jerseys and stadium upgrades. So you're doing all those things in between the matches as well. In the course of the game, of course, you've got these different players. They have abilities and positions that they like to play in and different strengths. And each game, you're going to go up against different teams. And then for each of those games, there's going to be a scout that's going to do some research about the team you're playing against. So you can sort of strategically kind of position your players in certain ways. It's fairly complex. It's rated, a 3.36 out of 5. So very complex game. It's also a very long game. One of the longest games in my top 50 list, actually. So anyway, we played it twice. I played it 3 players and 2 players, and each time was, well over 2 hours long, but it is really, really good. Apparently the solo mode's really good as well. So anyway, that's 11. Again, sports game about soccer. Really, really awesome game. Number 49 is Tidal Blade's Heroes of the Reef. Now, this surprised me how high this ranked in my list, but I can sort of understand why. I think that as I ranked games this time around, it's been 2 years since I did my, top 100 games. And I think that this time I really valued color and fun and a theme that pops, and Tidal Blades really does that well. I haven't played it a ton. This is a game that Gary has, but in this game you are basically going to be collecting shells and these squishy little berries and upgrading your dice in order to complete these objectives. You are these heroes like this person, and you are going to do different like objectives and goals and missions and stuff and defeat these beasts and increase your fame and stuff. And the really cool thing about this game is that you are going to be gaining experience as well. Look at this, it's got these experience wheels, so you'll be gaining in, whoa, let's see, spirit, oh my goodness gracious, this is so zoomed in, spirit and focus and resilience and synergy, it says. So as you complete objectives and things, you'll upgrade your way on those tracks and get better dice like you saw in that one picture, which is really cool. And I remember that there's this great, like, it's like when you throw Beyblades back in the day, right? This little stadium thing. So you check your dice in there to see if you can defeat the, objectives or the monsters or whatever. So that's the game. Again, I haven't played it a ton, but I remember really enjoying it. And I love the bright colors. I love the storyline there. There is another Tidal Blades coming out. It's called Tidal Blades 2 Rise of the Unfolders. It comes out this year. I don't think it's out yet, but I'd be curious to play that as well. Number 48 is a game that I used to own. It's called Riverboat by Michael Kiesling. And I think actually the first video ever on this channel was a video explaining why I was getting rid of this and some other games. And yeah, now, I don't know if I regret getting rid of it per se, but I do really find this game intriguing. Michael Kiesling is a great designer. He did the Azul games. He also made a great game called Heaven and Nail. And at the time, I think my core reason for not keeping Riverboat was, one, I wasn't sure if Hannah was super into it, and she's my primary gaming partner, but two, there were a lot of similarities to Heaven and Nail, and I figured if it was one or the other, I'd always want to choose Heaven and Nail. So I wasn't sure how much I'd get this played, but now, the more I think about it, the more it has some really unique elements, and the coolest part about it, or at least the most idiosyncratic part of the game, was that you start each round by bidding on or drafting the different phases of each round. I think there's 5 phases in each round. So you auction, oh my goodness, you draft one of those phases. Now, everybody participates in all the phases, but you, if you chose that phase, you get to go first, or you get like an extra bonus benefit when you take that phase. That's been used by other games before and since, but I thought Riverboat did it really, really well. So yeah, here it is. So you can look at this phase token right here. Phase 2 is when you start placing tiles on your tableau, and the player who took that, I think, gets the coin, and then you can use coins to kind of mitigate things. But yeah, you're going to be placing different crops on your player board, and then there's really cool harvest rules and scoring things and cards you can take. But oh, and then of course you can take your workers to New Orleans. I think that's where they go, and they score down there as well. It's very interesting. It's been a while since I played it. I came up with a solo mode for it as well, if I remember right. But anyway, it's Riverboat. I'm not finding any super great pictures of it. Maybe, let's try to get one more picture. There's a good one. Yeah, so you put your workers down, you get wells, you're planting corn and wheat and pumpkins and potatoes and stuff. It's a really great game. I would love to play this again with somebody who knows the game or who would, really want to play it, but it's just not my collection anymore. Number 47 is Brazil Imperial. This is a very new game, 2021, that came out recently. It's not terribly complex, but it is this small package, very quick, fairly streamlined 4X game. You're going to be exploring and exterminating and exploiting and the other things that you do in a 4X game. It's got card play, it's got contracts, grid movement. What else is going on in this game? Open drafting, tile placement. It's a lot going on. But yeah, it's also bright, it's colorful, it's got these great components, the production value is huge, and you've got this great board to go explore. So you're going to be putting down buildings and putting down troops, and you'll be moving around the map and exploring and flipping over new tiles. And, doing combat with other players as well. And I think, if I remember right, there must be some resources on the map that you can take if you go on that spot, kind of like Scythe. I really enjoyed that. And my friend Connor, whose game this was, he also kind of compared it to Scythe. Not that it's a Scythe killer. I would much prefer to play Scythe, I think. But, as for a small, compact, fairly easy to teach, not terribly complex game, Brazil Imperial is a great choice. Great, lovely art, by the way. Again, great components, great colors, just a stunning presentation. But look at that box cover. I love that. So yeah, it's a 4X game, but not terribly competitive, not combative. It's not super in your face. There's plenty of Euro strategic decisions outside of the combat. So yeah, Brazil Imperial, really cool game. I only played it, oh gosh, once or twice, but it left a good taste in my mouth. I'd like to play it again. Number 46 is Endeavor Age of Sail. This game only came out a few years ago in 2018, 2 to 5 players, not terribly complex. This is actually one of only 2 games in my entire collection that is unplayed. Now, of course, I've played Endeavor Age of Sail, but my copy's never been played. But let me go ahead and show you this behemoth of a game. I'm not sure how much I'm gonna get in frame here, but in Endeavor, which is, again, one of my favorite games, obviously, you are going to be sailing around the Atlantic and establishing trade routes and looking for, oh goodness, like business opportunities, trading opportunities, and building buildings and doing all sorts of, economic things. So everybody gets their player board, which looks like so. I mean, this game is absolutely huge. I don't even know if I could play it on my table, but everyone gets a player board like so, and their own resources like this. You've got a starting building and you've got your action discs. And this is the bulk of the game because that's how you're gonna do things on the main map. But each round of the game, this is so elegant, it's so streamlined, you're just gonna work your way through these 5 stages, right? And over here, you're gonna be building buildings, you're gonna be getting discs, you're gonna be paying off your workers, and then gaining cards to put down here, okay? And then, so you do that simultaneously, the building, the discs, paying the discs, retrieving them, and then in turn order, the only part that's in turn order is actually kind of interacting with the main map, and then you just discard down or whatever. So a lot of this game is simultaneous, and it helps it really go quickly and smoothly. So let's take a look at this board, which looks like it's gotten a little warped from being in my collection for so long. 2-sided, I think one's for a certain player count, the other side's for the other. But if you can sort of see the board here, these circles, this is where you're gonna be placing discs. And in these spaces are gonna be all these different tokens. And as you put a piece on the adjacent sides of the token, you get to take the token. And basically, all of that is gonna serve to move your way along forward in these tracks, which lets you build better buildings and get more discs and retrieve more discs and put more cards out down here. So it's a little bit much to explain, but it's not terribly complicated. It's actually very, very simple to teach, I think. And yeah, I've always loved Endeavor Age of Sail, and I think I got it on sale one time and thought, you know what, I'll go ahead and grab it. Now, it is, like I said, better at more players. There's 2 to 5 players, but I think even the 2-player game is kind of like a variant. So yeah, I haven't played it with Hannah yet. I'm not sure if we'd enjoy it a ton 2-player, but I know it's a great game for, maybe 4 or 5 players is where this game shines. Number 45 is Imperial Settlers. Now, this is kind of an older game, at least in board game terms. It came out in 2014, and I think I only played it once or twice back in like 2019. So I couldn't tell you a lot about this game off the top of my head. For some reason, it seems like as I was ranking games, these games that I played way back at the beginning of my board gaming career back in 2019, I don't know if it's just nostalgia or I don't know what it was, but I just kept ranking these games higher, even though, again, I couldn't tell you a ton about this game. I do know that it's an ancient civilization building game, which I love that already. It's all card-based, so basically, over the course of the game, you're going to be producing resources. You're going to use those resources to purchase new cards. Those cards are going to go on either side of your player board here, and then it's going to kind of buff those actions, I believe. So it's an engine building game, which is very much, up my alley. So by building the rice fields and the Buddhist temple and the daimyo's castle and grain fields and watchtowers and things like that, you're gonna bolster your production. And then you've got this feature thing, your special ability, and then your action phase. And then you have, again, cards down here, garrisons, stalls, the sumo school, all that kind of thing. I'm assuming just from that example that each faction has their own deck of cards to play. So yeah, again, it's been a very long time, but I like the art, I like the idea of this game, I like civilization games. I love physical resource components, and I like engine builders. So there's a lot of stuff going for this game. Looks like it's not super heavy at all, no. And 45 to 90 minutes, 1 to 4 players. This is one I'd like to play again sometime soon because it looks really good. And I know it's got all kinds of expansions. Empires of the North I've heard really good things about. So anyway, yeah, that's Imperial Settlers. Number 44 is Champions of Midgard, another game I haven't played in years, but again, something about this theme, the vibrant colors, the exciting gameplay, the rolling the dice. I'm not typically a huge fan of rolling dice to see what the outcome is. Like, I like there are games that I like that have that in it, but normally that's not one of my favorite things. But I think in a game like this, which is just so fast and loose and chaotic and fun and it's almost push your luck, I like that element in a game like this. So in Champions of Midgard, you're going to gain glory by defending a Viking harbor town against trolls, draugr, and other beasts. So let's take a look. Essentially, this game is a worker placement game, and then you're also like building up your ship and troops and going out to defeat monsters and things. But I like this home board because it kind of harkens back to a game like Stone Age, for example, if I can find a better picture of that home board, like so maybe. Oh, let's see. Yeah, so you've got the worker huts, you've got the church, you've got the Jarl's longhouse, the market, swordsmith, blacksmith. So as you go to these spaces with your workers, you're going to get more dice, more resources, you're going to get provisions and stuff. The dice are your troops, and you'll be rolling those as you interact with monsters and draugrs and things like that. So you have to roll and get a certain number of hits. On the right side, that's its HP, and then it attacks you for 2 and so on and so forth. By defeating them, you can get coins, you can get points, stuff like that. Yep. And you got different troop types. There's like axemen and swordsmen and spear throwers and stuff like that. So it's a great game. It's a lot of fun, and I haven't played it in ages, but I would really like to play this again. I really enjoy a good Viking themed game. So Champions of Midgard seems great. Oh, there is an expansion that people say is like a must-have. It's called Valhalla, and I know I've played with it as well. But basically what Valhalla does is it gives your troops that are defeated or killed like a purpose. So instead of them just dying, there's something for them to do, and you can use the dead soldiers in certain ways. It adds a separate board. Oh, I guess like this. Anyway, you can check that out on your own, but that's Champions of Midgard. Number 43 is Merchant's Cove, which came out relatively recently. It was 2021, 2 years ago. Designed by Johnny Pack and some other designers as well. But this game is super intriguing because it's super asymmetric, which is not always my favorite thing, but I really find it fascinating the way these each faction is totally playing a different game. I know people say that sometimes, like in Root or whatever, but I literally mean they're playing a completely different game. So there's one faction that is doing like dice placement, the blacksmith, right? There's one faction that's going to be doing more of like a potion explosion thing where they're using marbles and moving marbles around to concoct potions and things, which is really interesting. There is this like almost anachrony thing where this time traveler like goes back in time to get resources from the past and send his assistant to go into the future and things. It's very complicated. And what else is there? I like being the innkeeper, which is like a worker placement almost. There's the fisherman or the captain. You're gonna go around and catch fish and get treasure, which is super simple and straightforward. And then there's the roll and write. Like, there are so many amazing factions, and they each, hopefully balance out pretty well. I remember the innkeeper when I played it seemed super strong, like very OP. I'm pretty sure they've changed the rules since about the innkeeper because it was so powerful, but there's the innkeeper's board. But it's so incredible, and the only things in common that you share are basically, one is the time track. That's like your currency. That's how you determine player order, by spending time, which, like in Patchwork, like in Trekking Through History, it's in a lot of games. So here's your time track. But beyond that, you're also sharing the meeples that come to visit the port, right? To come visit Merchant's Cove. And as they come through, you're going to try to recruit them to your shop. So the boats, as they come in, that is a shared resource that you're trying to kind of vie for. And then the time track is turn order. But beyond that, you're doing your own thing. And I love that. I think the replayability is so high. I want to try playing as every faction. And I know there's many factions in like the all-in Kickstarter. So anyway, I really like it. Merchant's Cove is my number 43. Number 42 is Rurik Dawn of Kiev, designed by the phenomenal Stan Kordonsky. You'll hear more about him later in my top 50 list, but this is such an extraordinarily elegant, streamlined, very cleverly designed game. I think it's great. The art is great, the theme is great, but this is just astounding. So They call this auction programming. This is a new game mechanic, and I love this idea. So you've got workers that vary from 1 to 5, 5 being the strongest worker. And in turn order, before each round, you're going to put your meeples on this board, and basically it's an auction bidding thing. So you're going to put them where you want it, and you can also use your coins to kind of bolster their strength. So I believe that would be like a level 6 meeple, right? And as people put stronger workers on the column, it's going to bump you down lower and lower. So the turn order is really clever, like adding extra coins to kind of buff up your meeples. It's so clever. And then once all the meeples are where they need to be, you all resolved your meeples, you're gonna go, I believe, from left to right and resolve them top to bottom. So it's hard to see because the board is covered up, but obviously the higher action spaces on the column give you better benefits. So let's take a look at this over here. So for example, right, if you're at the top of the muster track, you can muster 3 troops, right? And then 2 troops, and then spend 1 to muster 1 troop. So you want to be at the top of each column. So you're going to put troops onto the board. We'll talk about that. And then you're going to move. Then you're going to attack either each other or these barbarians that are on the board. And then you're going to tax for some income or production, I suppose. Then you can build, and then you can scheme, which you play these cards that change the game up. But that board is just so fascinating. I love that concept. And it allows for the resolution stage to just be super, super snappy because you know what you're doing. Boom, boom, boom. It's all laid out there on those columns for you. Okay? And then you've got the map. I love this map. I'm not a huge fan of dudes on a map, troops on a map type of games. In fact, when I was removing games from my top 150, mostly they were like, dudes on a map types games, but this one isn't so bad. Again, there's enough strategy and planning and mitigation that you can kind of get what you want to get done, hopefully. So as you take over these provinces, you can do some production and again, defeat barbarians. Barbarians have special bonuses on the back of them. And yeah, you just move around the board and attack each other and try to assert influence and produce more. It is such a good game. I think it probably plays better at more players, as a lot of these games do. It says best at 3 to 4. That makes sense. But there's a solo mode as well. It's great. And there's a new expansion, I think, that came out recently. I'm sure Gary has it. So yeah, Rurik Stone and Blade. Sounds epic. So great game, not terribly hard to understand, very much worth checking out. Rurik, Dawn of Kiev. And my last one for today, number 41, is Dinosaur Island. Now this kind of surprised me, if nothing else, because I'm not sure I like this artistic decision making of the colors and the gaudiness of these boards. Like, oh my gosh, it's so neon and oof. That being said, I do remember very much enjoying the game. I've played it maybe 2 or 3 times, but it's basically like Jurassic World, the board game, honestly. So you're going to collect DNA dice. You're going to use those DNA to build dinosaurs and put them out into your park. And then beyond that, you're also going to be building attractions and little concession shops to get like money from tourists or visitors that come to your store. So you're gaining DNA here. Oh, as you build dinosaurs, by the way, your threat level goes up. So you need to kind of build security and make sure your threat level is not going over your security, because then people in your park get eaten, which is super thematically fun, but also very tragic. But anyway, like you can see here, you got a little hat stand, Jurassic pork and t-shirts and stuff like that. So, and then each round, once you've resolved all like your building dinosaurs and concessions phase, you reach into the bag to pull out meeples, and those meeples, those visitors, come to visit your park, and you kind of assign them where they're gonna go. So they might look at the dinosaurs, they might go to the shops, get you some income, and then you turn around and use that income for more dinosaurs, more DNA, more concession stands. It's really great. It also reminds me of a game I used to play when I was very young, back in elementary school, called Dino Park Tycoon, which I loved and still love that game. But it's basically the same concept. Gain money, build dinosaurs, build concessions, get tourists to come into your park, gain more money, rinse and repeat. It's really solid. I really like Dinosaur Island. And there you have it. That was part 1 of my top 50 games of all time. Of course, come back next week for part 2, numbers 40 through 31. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do that so you don't miss next week's video. And hopefully there'll be lots more surprises. Again, lots of blasts from the past, games I haven't thought about in literally years, like Rurik or Imperial Settlers or Tidal Blades, but all really good games that left me feeling like, man, I really want to play that again, which is, I'm sure, why they ended up so high in my list. So Anyway, please leave me a comment down there in the comments. Of course, you know I respond to every comment. Let me know how Endeavor plays at 2 players, or let me know if you know anything about the Tidal Blades expansion, or if you've played 11, or if you know of any other sports games that I should check out. So yeah, let me know anything you want to tell me about the games I mentioned in the comments down below. And in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Take care and happy gaming. Bye. Hub Meeple, which is a really great. It's by designer Ignacy. I'm not gonna try to say that. Again, lots of blasts from the past, games that and there you have it.